The Discovery, the Council of Questions. The conference room aboard Galactic Research Station Omega-7 hummed with tension. Representatives from 12 different species sat around a circular table made of crystallized starlight, their varied forms creating strange shadows in the soft blue illumination. At the head of the table, Commander Thexhai of the Zelkonian Empire tapped his four-fingered hand against the surface, creating small ripples of light. "We have gathered here today to discuss the human situation," Thexhai announced, his voice carrying the weight of authority. His scaled reptilian features remained impassive, but his golden eyes betrayed curiosity. "For the past 50 standard years we have watched this young species spread across the galaxy. They should have failed a dozen times over." Professor Quintel, the Etherian scientist, floated slightly above her designated seat, her translucent form shimmering with internal bioluminescence. "Commander, with respect, humans are not particularly special. Their technology is adequate but not revolutionary. Their physical capabilities are average at best. Their lifespans are remarkably short." "And yet," interrupted Dr. Elena Vasquez, the sole human representative at the table, "here we are, establishing colonies on worlds you deemed uninhabitable, solving problems you considered unsolvable, and adapting to challenges that destroyed other civilizations." The room fell silent. Elena had not been invited to speak, but none could deny her words. She was a xenobiologist who had spent her career studying alien cultures, and her presence at this meeting was itself proof of humanity's unexpected success. Thexhai studied Elena with interest. "Dr. Vasquez, your species puzzles us. The Krillian Empire collapsed when their homeworld's climate shifted by 3 degrees. The Vorthon civilization fell apart when their primary trade route was disrupted. Yet humans have survived ice ages, global wars, plagues, and now thrive in the hostile environment of space. Why?" Elena smiled, an expression that seemed to unnerve several of the alien representatives. "Perhaps because we never learned how to give up properly." The Watchers and the Watch 3 days later, Captain Marcus Chen guided his cargo freighter, the Iron Will, through the Nebulon shipping corridor. The ship was old, its hull scarred by micrometeorite impacts and cosmic radiation, but Chen had maintained it with the care of someone who understood that in space, your ship was your life. He whistled an old Earth tune as he checked the navigation systems, unaware that he was being observed by some of the most advanced minds in the galaxy. Aboard the research station, Commander Thexhai, Professor Quintel, and Dr. Vasquez watched the cargo ship through advanced sensors that could detect everything from hull stress to the captain's heartbeat. Elena had proposed this experiment after the council meeting. If they wanted to understand human resilience, they should observe it in action. "Target selected," Professor Quintel announced, her ethereal voice carrying across the observation deck. "Captain Marcus Chen, age 34, veteran of the Mars freight routes. His ship is ancient by galactic standards, held together by determination and spare parts." Thexhai leaned forward, his scales shifting color with anticipation. "Begin the test sequence. Let us see how humans respond to gradually increasing challenges." Elena felt a knot form in her stomach. She had agreed to this observation, but something about deliberately creating problems for an innocent person troubled her. Still, if it helped other species understand humanity, perhaps it was worth it. The first malfunction was subtle. The Iron Will's navigation computer began providing slightly inaccurate readings. Nothing dangerous, but enough to require constant manual adjustments. Chen noticed within minutes. "Well, that's just perfect," he muttered, running diagnostic checks. "Computer, why are you giving me readings that would put me into that asteroid field?" Through their sensors, the observers watched as Chen calmly recalibrated the system, cross-referenced stellar positions manually, and continued his journey without missing a beat. Quintel tilted her head, puzzled. Most species would have immediately called for assistance or returned to port for repairs. "Not humans," Elena said quietly. "We fix things ourselves first, ask for help later." The second challenge came an hour later. The ship's environmental systems began fluctuating, causing temperature variations throughout the vessel. Chen noticed, when his breath began forming small clouds in the cockpit. "Come on, old girl," he said, patting the console affectionately. "Don't give up on me now." Instead of panicking, Chen methodically worked through the environmental system's components. When he discovered the primary regulator was failing, he improvised a bypass using spare parts from the galley's food processor. The observers watched in fascination as he soldered circuits with a modified welding tool and used insulation from his own jacket to wrap exposed wiring. "Remarkable," Quintel whispered. "He is treating the malfunction as a puzzle to solve rather than a crisis to endure." Thexhi's scales had shifted to a deep blue, indicating intense interest. "Increase the difficulty. Let us see his breaking point." Elena shifted uncomfortably. "Commander, perhaps we should begin Phase 3, Thexhi ordered, "when everything goes wrong." The Iron Will's main engine began experiencing power fluctuations, causing the ship to lurch unpredictably through space. Warning lights flashed across the cockpit as multiple systems reported failures simultaneously. The life support showed critical errors, the communication array went offline, and the artificial gravity began cycling on and off in nauseating waves. Chen found himself floating one moment and slammed against the deck the next. Any reasonable person would have activated the emergency beacon and waited for rescue. Instead, Chen laughed. "You've got to be kidding me," he said to the universe in general. "All at once? Really?" The observers watched in amazement as Chen began what could only be described as creative problem-solving. He rerouted power from non-essential systems, used his personal tablet to bypass the damaged communication relay, and rigged a manual gravity control using the cargo bay's magnetic loading system. "This is impossible," Quintel said, her bioluminescence flickering rapidly with confusion. "His ship is experiencing multiple critical failures. He should be in a state of panic." "Look at his biometrics," Elena pointed out. "His stress levels are elevated but within normal ranges. His heart rate is steady. He's not panicking because he's thinking." Chen's voice drifted through their sensors as he worked. "Okay, if I can't fix the main engine, maybe I can modify the maneuvering thrusters for sustained burn. And if the life support is failing, I've got about 6 hours of emergency air. Plenty of time to reach the Gamma station if I plot a direct course." But as Chen began implementing his improvised solutions, something unexpected happened. The ship's sensors detected 3 vessels approaching fast, and their energy signatures were unmistakably hostile. "Pirates," Elena breathed, recognizing the ship configurations. "They're targeting the Iron Will." Thexhi rose from his observation chair, his expression grim. This was not part of the test. The lead pirate vessel opened communications, broadcasting on standard frequencies. "Cargo vessel, prepare to be boarded. Transfer all valuable materials to our ships, and you might survive this encounter." Chen's response was immediate and unprintable. The human factor, what happened next, would be studied by alien military academies for decades to come. Instead of surrendering or attempting to flee with his damaged ship, Chen did something completely unexpected. He began using his malfunctions as weapons. The failing engine produced massive electromagnetic pulses that interfered with the pirates' targeting systems. Chen manually timed these pulses, creating a pattern that made his ship appear to be in multiple locations simultaneously. The gravity fluctuations, which had been throwing him around the cockpit, became rapid course changes that no normal ship could execute. "He is turning his disadvantages into tactical advantages," Thexhi observed, his military mind appreciating the strategy. "But it cannot work. 3 ships against 1, and his vessel is barely functional." Chen's voice crackled through the static-filled communication system as he broadcast to the pirates. "You picked the wrong freighter, friends. I'm having a really bad day and I'm not in the mood to make yours any better." The Iron Will spun through space in a pattern that seemed chaotic, but was actually carefully calculated. Chen was using the asteroid field that his navigation computer had originally tried to steer him into, weaving between massive rocks while the larger pirate vessels struggled to follow. "Impossible," Quintel whispered. "The computational requirements for that kind of navigation, especially with failing systems." "He's not computing it," Elena realized. He's feeling it. Humans have an intuitive understanding of three-dimensional space that most species lack. We evolved as persistence hunters on a planet with complex terrain. One of the pirate ships attempting to follow Chen's erratic path clipped an asteroid and spun out of control. The other two backed off, trying to get clear shots, but Chen was already implementing the next phase of his improvised plan. He had been quietly venting atmosphere from his damaged life support system, creating a thin trail of gas behind his ship. When the pirates finally lined up for a coordinated attack, Chen ignited the gas trail using his modified welding tool, creating a spectacular explosion that temporarily blinded their sensors. In that moment of confusion, Chen did something that shocked the observers. Instead of using the distraction to escape, he attacked. The impossible solution. The iron will, held together by spare parts and determination, somehow managed to ram the smaller of the two remaining pirate vessels. The impact should have destroyed both ships, but Chen had calculated the collision perfectly, striking at an angle that disabled the pirate vessel while only losing his cargo bay doors. "This is insane," HFY muttered, watching as Chen's ship continued to function despite damage that should have been catastrophic. No trained pilot would attempt such a maneuver. "No trained pilot would need to," Elena replied. "They would have better ships, better weapons, better options. Humans excel at making impossible situations work because we refuse to accept that they're impossible." The remaining pirate vessel, faced with an apparently insane opponent who had just destroyed two of their ships using nothing but malfunctions and creativity, decided that whatever cargo Chen was carrying wasn't worth the risk. They fled, leaving the iron will floating alone among the asteroids. Chen's voice filled the observation deck, tired but triumphant. "Well, that was exciting. Now where was I? Oh right, fixing the engine. As if the battle had been nothing more." Then a brief interruption, Chen returned to his repairs. Within 2 hours he had the ship functional enough to reach Gamma Station. As the iron will limped away from the asteroid field, the observers sat in stunned silence. "I believe, Professor," Quintel said slowly, "we have been testing the wrong thing." HFY turned to Elena, his golden eyes reflecting something that might have been respect. "Dr. Vasquez, what did we just witness?" Elena smiled, that same unsettling human smile. "You witnessed what happens when humans refuse to break? We don't just survive impossible situations. We find ways to make them work for us." "But how?" Quintel asked. "The mathematics alone." "Mathematics assumes you know all the variables," Elena explained. "Humans specialize in solving problems when half the information is missing. The rules keep changing and failure means death. We call it improvisation, but it's really something much more fundamental." HFY's scales shifted to a deep purple, indicating deep thought. "What would you call it?" Elena looked out at the stars where Marcus Chen continued his journey, probably already planning his next impossible solution to whatever problem awaited him. "Hope," she said simply. "We call it hope." The revelation, the council reconvenes. 5 days after the Iron Will incident, the council chamber aboard Research Station Omega-7 was packed beyond capacity. Word of the human cargo captain's impossible victory had spread throughout the Galactic. Community and representatives from species who had never shown interest in human affairs were now demanding answers. Commander HFY called the session to order, but his usual authoritative demeanor was subdued. The events he had witnessed had challenged fundamental assumptions about warfare, survival, and the nature of intelligence itself. "Fellow beings," he began, his scaled hands folded carefully on the table, "we convened this council to understand why humans succeed where logic suggests they should fail. What we discovered may change how we view not just humanity, but ourselves." Ambassador Vrektos of the Titanid Collective, a massive crystalline being whose thoughts resonated through harmonic frequencies, spoke first. "Commander HFY, we have reviewed the sensor data from your observation. The human's actions appear to violate several basic principles of tactical doctrine." "That's precisely the point," Dr. Elena Vasquez interjected, rising from her seat. Human tactics don't follow your doctrine because we never learned your limitations. Professor Quintel materialized more solidly than usual, her bioluminescent form pulsing with curiosity. Dr. Vasquez, could you elaborate? What do you mean by learned limitations? Elena activated a holographic display showing various alien civilizations. Every advanced species in this galaxy has spent millennia perfecting their societies, eliminating chaos, reducing variables. You've created predictable, efficient systems, but in doing so, you've also created predictable, efficient limitations. The patterns of perfection. Elena's display showed the rise and fall of galactic civilizations over the past 100,000 years. Each species followed a remarkably similar pattern: rapid technological advancement, social optimization, expansion, across multiple worlds, and then stagnation. The Krillian Empire, Elena continued, highlighting one example, achieved perfect environmental control across their homeworld. When climate change occurred, they had no experience adapting to chaos. The Vorthon civilization optimized their trade routes so efficiently that when one route was disrupted, their entire economy collapsed within months. Ambassador Vrektos resonated with what might have been confusion. You suggest that our advancement has made us weak? Not weak, Elena replied, specialized. You've evolved for success in controlled environments. Humans evolved for survival in chaos. Commander Thexhai leaned forward, his military mind grasping the implications. Your species never achieved the level of social control that we consider basic civilization. Exactly, Elena smiled. We're still practicing. Every human grows up solving problems with incomplete information, adapting to changing circumstances, and finding ways to make broken systems work. What you call crisis management, we call Tuesday. Professor Quintel's form flickered with excitement. This explains Captain Chen's response to multiple system failures. Where we saw catastrophic malfunction, he saw a familiar challenge. But surely, another voice interjected, this chaos you speak of limits your advancement? Humans have only achieved interstellar travel in the last century. Elena nodded. True. We're newcomers to space. But we're also the only species that's successfully established colonies on worlds everyone else declared uninhabitable. We're the only ones who've made contact with hostile species and turned them into trading partners. We're the only ones who've taken technology from 12 different civilizations and somehow made it all work together. The captain's story. As if summoned by their discussion, a communication request came through from the Iron Will. Captain Marcus, Chen's weathered face appeared on the main display, his cargo ship visible in the background, now bearing fresh repair patches and an odd collection of modifications. Dr. Vasquez, Chen said with a grin, I heard you folks wanted to talk about what happened out there. Thought I'd save you the trouble of sending an official request. Thexhai studied the human captain with new eyes. Captain Chen, were you aware that your encounter with the pirates was being observed? Chen shrugged. Figured as much when my ship started having convenient malfunctions right after passing a research station. No offense, but alien technology leaves a pretty distinctive signature when it's messing with human systems. The council chamber erupted in surprised sounds from various species. Professor Quintel's bioluminescence flared brightly. You knew you were being tested and continued anyway? Well, yeah, Chen replied as if it were obvious. Figured you had your reasons. Besides, my cargo was time-sensitive and those malfunctions weren't dangerous, just annoying. I've dealt with worse. Ambassador, Frektos resonated with what might have been disbelief. Captain, you faced multiple system failures and a pirate attack. How do you classify that as not dangerous? Chen laughed, a sound that seemed to puzzle several of the alien representatives. Dangerous was when I was 12 and my family's terraforming equipment failed during a dust storm on New Colorado. 3 days without working air recyclers, and we had to jury-rig a solution using parts from my sister's science project. Now that was scary. Elena felt a swell of pride as she watched the aliens process this information. Here was a human who casually mentioned surviving as a child what most species would consider a civilization-ending catastrophe. Captain, Thexai said carefully. How did you devise your strategy against the pirates? The tactical innovations you employed? Strategy? Chen scratched his head. I was just trying to make my broken ship do something useful. The engine was pulsing, so I used the pulses. The gravity was wonky, so I used that for maneuvering. When you don't have the right tools, you make do with what you have. The revelation Professor Quintel suddenly began pulsing rapidly, her excitement visible to all. I understand now. It's not just resilience or adaptability. It's something far more profound. She addressed the council, her voice carrying new certainty. Every species in this galaxy has spent eons learning what is possible within the constraints of physics, society, and logic. Humans never learned those constraints. They approach every problem as if a solution must exist. Elena nodded enthusiastically. We call it thinking outside the box, but it's more fundamental than that. Humans assume that every problem has a solution, even when all evidence suggests otherwise. But that's illogical, Ambassador Rectos resonated. Many problems have no solutions. Do they? Chen's voice cut through the discussion. Or do they just have solutions nobody's tried yet? Look, I'm not a scientist or a philosopher. I'm just a guy who hauls cargo. But I learned a long time ago that impossible usually just means nobody's figured it out yet. Commander Thexai was quiet for a long moment, his scales shifting through various colors as he processed this information. Finally, he spoke. Captain Chen, in your encounter with the pirates, you were outnumbered 3-1, operating a severely damaged vessel with no backup and no escape route. By any reasonable military analysis, you should have died. Maybe, Chen agreed. But I didn't have time to think about dying. I was too busy figuring out how to win. The chamber fell silent. In that moment, representatives from 12 different species began to understand something that would reshape galactic civilization. It's not hope, Elena said quietly, correcting her earlier assessment. Hope is believing things will get better. What humans have is something different. We have adaptive faith, the absolute conviction that a solution exists, even when we can't see it yet. The new Alliance commander, Thexai, rose from his seat, a gesture that commanded attention throughout the chamber. Dr. Vasquez, Captain Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally apologize for subjecting you to unauthorized testing. Elena waved dismissively. No harm done, Commander. We understand curiosity. However, Thexai continued, what we have learned raises important questions about the future of our civilization. Captain Chen, your people are expanding rapidly through the galaxy. Many species view this with concern. Chen's expression grew serious. Commander, humans don't want to conquer anyone. We just want to explore, trade, learn, and find places where our kids can grow up with room to breathe. If that threatens people, maybe we need to talk about why. Professor Quintel floated forward. Captain, what if the threat isn't conquest but obsolescence? What if advanced species fear that human adaptability makes our technological superiority irrelevant? The cargo. Captain considered this for a moment. Well, that's kind of a dumb fear, isn't it? I mean, my ship works because it's got Krillian environmental systems, Vorthan engines, Etherian computers, and human duct tape holding it all together. We're not replacing your technology. We're figuring out how to make it work better. Ambassador. Frektos resonated with what sounded like realization. You're not conquerors, you're integrators. Sure, Chen shrugged. We take the best ideas from everyone and mash them together until something works. That's how humans have always done things. Elena stepped forward, sensing an opportunity. Commander Thexai, what if instead of viewing human expansion as a threat, the galaxy saw it as an opportunity? Our species excels at solving problems others consider unsolvable. Your species have knowledge and resources we can barely imagine. Together, we might solve problems that have plagued the galaxy for millennia. Thexai finished, his scales shifting to a warm gold color. That indicated approval. The promise of tomorrow, as the council session continued, something unprecedented began to happen. For the first time in galactic history, advanced civilizations began discussing not how to contain a younger species, but how to collaborate with it. Plans emerged for joint research stations where human adaptability could be combined with alien precision. Trade agreements were proposed that would allow human merchants to connect isolated systems that had been considered too dangerous or unprofitable for traditional routes. Cultural exchange programs were designed to help other species rediscover the art of improvisation while teaching humans the benefits of long-term planning. Captain Chen, who had started the day as an unwitting test subject, found himself appointed as the first human liaison to the Galactic Council. "I'm just a cargo hauler," he protested. "You're a human who refuses to accept impossible," Commander Thexhai replied. "That makes you exactly what this galaxy needs." As the meeting concluded, Elena felt a sense of satisfaction she had never experienced before. Humanity had not been judged for their chaos, their youth, or their tendency to break rules. They had been valued for their ability to find solutions where others saw only problems. Dr. Vasquez, Professor Quintel approached as the chamber emptied. "I have a question that has been troubling me. If humans excel at solving impossible problems, what happens when you encounter a problem that truly has no solution?" Elena smiled, that unsettling human expression that no longer seemed quite so alien to the Etherian scientist. "Professor, humans have been asking that question for thousands of years. We call it philosophy, and we're still working on it. But here's the thing about humans. We never stop trying to find the answer." As the Iron Will prepared to depart for its next cargo run, now escorted by ships from 3 different species eager to study human problem-solving techniques, Captain Chen transmitted a final message to the research station. "Thanks for the adventure, folks. Oh, and Dr. Vasquez. You might want to tell your council friends that if they really want to understand humans, they should try breaking something on purpose and then figure out how to fix it. Works wonders for the creativity." The transmission ended with Chen's laughter echoing through the cosmos, carrying with it the promise of a galaxy where impossible was just another word for not yet solved. In the observation deck of Research Station Omega 7, Elena watched the stars and smiled. Humanity's greatest export wasn't technology or culture or even their famous resilience. It was something far more valuable: the absolute refusal to believe that any problem was truly unsolvable. The galaxy would never be the same, and that, Elena thought as she began planning humanity's next impossible solution, was exactly the point.